Hey, are you a melody writer considering writing with a lyricist? Here is what you need to know about writing with a lyricist. Take it away, Johnny.
Welcome to the C.L.I.M.B. This is a show dedicated to helping singers, songwriters, and indie artists like you create leverage in the music business. That's what you're going to need to get ahead. You've got to do this for yourself. The good news is you don't need anybody's permission to be a writer and to be a successful artist, but you do have to do it yourself. You got to create the revenue. You can record it, you can work it, you can tour it, you can do everything on your own, show them what you're made of, show them you can make money, and then the people are going to come out of the woodwork to offer you the label deal, the booking deal, the management deal, the publishing deal, all that stuff that you want. That's why we called it the C.L.I.M.B, C-L-I-M-B, creating leverage in the music business. That's a Baxtronym from my good friend and co-host, Mr. Brent Baxter, who is an award-winning hit songwriter with cuts by Alan Jackson, Randy Travis, Lady A, Joe Nichols, and more. Got a couple number ones last year as well on gospel, right?
Yeah, Southern Gospel.
Southern Gospel. And what I love about Brent is he helps writers like you. He reveals how to turn pro by teaching you how to write like a pro, do business like a pro, and then on the regular, he is going to get you in front of the pros and introduce you to the pros and give you an opportunity to make a relationship. You can find Brent very easily at songwritingpro.com. Once again, that's songwritingpro.com.
That's right. And I would like to introduce you to my co-host, Johnny Dwinell. Johnny owns Daredevil Production. They're breaking artists digitally by identifying new fans through data. Yeah, it's complicated, but yeah, Johnny's smart. If you're an artist looking to increase your streams, blow up your video views, sell more live show tickets, and get discovered by new fans, TV, and music industry pros, then Daredevil Production can help. Daredevil has worked with multi-platinum artists like Colin Ray, Tracy Lawrence, Ty Herndon, and Andy Griggs, just to name a few. You can find Johnny at daredevilproduction.com. That is production, singular, no S, and there is no S because there is no other Johnny D.
What's happening?
Hello. The sun is shining and life is good. Life is good, man. It's a good day. How you doing?
That's right. I'm doing good. What are we going to learn today?
Well, this stems from a conversation I had with one of my Songwriting Pro interns, Connor Shaw. He's a student at Belmont. And, we're having our weekly Zoom meeting. He's doing research for me and all this stuff. And he's a cool dude. He does great work. So shout out, Connor. And then at the end of it, I always try to do like a Q&A, like, hey, what questions do you have for me? Because, with interns, I want them to learn, right? It's not just a one-way street.
Right.
And so he's a songwriter as well. He's like, I've been hit up by some people to co-write, which is great, A lot of them are lyricists. He goes, you're a lyricist. What should I know, like going into a co-write with a lyricist? And so we just talked about it for a little while. And I was like, that should be on the podcast. So
that's a show right
since
there.
it's fresh on my mind, that was just this morning at the time of recording. So I'm like, all right, well, let's go ahead and dive into that. That's too good not to share. If he has a question, other people probably have a question. So let's talk about it.
Yeah. All right. Well, good. Well, before we get into that, let's take care of a little business here. We are very proud to be a part of one of the flagship shows on the American Songwriter Magazine's podcast network, ASPN. Mm-hmm. And if you have been a climber long before we got to ASPN, and then go check out some of the other shows. There's good stuff on there. If you found us through ASPN, welcome to the C.L.I.M.B.
That's right.
Okay. We love that. And join the C.L.I.M.B community. If you've ever been in kind of a Facebook group before, there's a lot of ghost towns out there. There's a lot of people shouting into the corner. They've, 300,000 members and nobody's saying anything.
Except, check out my song, new single drops, hit me up, follow me, buy my stuff.
Yeah. Was that a spam group?
Yeah, exactly. Like spammers are us.
But hey, the C.L.I.M.B community here, it grows every single day. It's very vibrant. We have singers, songwriters, indie artists, indie musicians. They're hooking up on co-writes. They're talking to one another, sharing marketing tricks and wins and stuff like this. This is just a cool hang, man. It's a cool place to be. Brent and I are trying to post in there often, like different things that we're thinking about and what we're doing. I post a lot of just music news stuff in there. And sometimes if I find just a cool music thing that I find online, a video, and post that in there, like, check this out. This will make your day.
Right.
And we want to see you in there. So join the C.L.I.M.B community.
Yes, right. I just want to send a shout out to Frank DeCenzo. I think is how you say it, Frank DeCenzo. He's a lyricist. He joined the C.L.I.M.B community recently. And he's just been great about posting. He'd post a thing about genius.com. He likes to share helpful information, And so he gave
thank
his
you,
opinion
Frank.
on stuff. So he's just been a fairly new member, but active. And I just appreciate that when Johnny and I aren't the only ones sharing links and resources and stuff. And also, we welcome your questions. So if you have a question, hit us up in there. I'm definitely happy anytime I see a post that's not by me or Johnny. It's not
That's appropriate.
that's not a spam thing. And we have places for you to share your music. We want to hear your music. We also have a place to share your wins, which is what I'm going to share right now. We have New Heights drops every Wednesday. It's a place in the comments. We want to hear your wins. We want to celebrate with you. And so let's just look through here. Let's see. Roger Fournier said, well, last week I posted I wrote a new song and sent to NSAI for evaluation. This is my process to let the pros help. So evaluation came back pretty good as I got to rewrite and put the girl in it. So he goes, I knew this, LOL. Always better with the girl in the song. So anyway, he just posted some of his response from NSAI. They do song evaluations and written ones. So he shared part of that, but he felt he got good feedback and that was a win for me. He rewrote it and made it better. So awesome. Kathy Wallace, Climber, says, I had a song I co-wrote get picked up by 2 different publishers who want to quote unquote run with it for 6 to 12 months. That's a yes, no matter what happens. So congratulations to Kathy. She's active.
I love that.
She's an active song pro and climber, and she's writing. Let's see. This dude, Brent, here says, blessed to see Hallelujah Homecoming nominated for Country Roots Single of the Year by the Absolutely Gospel Awards. So congratulations.
Hey, I got a friend named Brent who wrote a song called Hallelujah Homecoming. That's crazy. Why is that guy trying to steal your identity?
My thunder. Make me wonder.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So it's a blessing to be nominated.
That's awesome. Hey, I got a couple wins. I haven't posted them in there.
Yeah, tell me.
I need to post them in the New Heights, but I've befriended a new cinematographer, a new filmmaker that just moved to town. Her name is Angela Shelton. She's produced and written a couple movies and a pretty compelling documentary, which is very interesting. She was on Oprah for that.
Wow.
They just bought a recording studio here in town, and I think it was with Ray Hamilton from Song Placement Pros that got us together. So we've just been hanging out, and she has a cooking show, like a real edgy cooking show that they're shooting it right now as we are recording this at Randy Travis's kitchen out in Ashland City. And I got 3 artists on that show, which is pretty cool. So I got Nick DeLeo, I got Nick Hickman, and I got Craig Gertis on that show. All artists that I've worked with in the past or I'm working with now. So that's super cool. So I'll put some pictures up there with her. She did send me a picture of her and Nick DeLeo. I think maybe the other artists are today. So I'll probably get some more pictures from them at that point. But super cool.
Well, I love it that your win is a win for your artist, is creating wins for your artist. So tells me a lot about you, Johnny. That's what we're doing. It tells me a lot about you.
There we go. Yeah, it's like I'm helping people. So listen, make sure you subscribe to the podcast wherever you like to listen to podcasts. And speaking of subscribing, we've got a new rating and review, which is from Six String Poet. And this says, let's see here. It says more than a podcast, 5-star rating, by the way. Thank you, Six String Poet. The Climb is much more than a podcast, but rather a community of like-minded and musically passion-driven people. The content is spot on with real-life applications presented in a conversational manner between 2 friends sitting at a table grabbing lunch. We got to do that one time. Just grab lunch.
And hear chewing. That'd be awesome.
That's right. I always learn something and find myself laughing at some point, which keeps me engaged. I'm proud to be a climber.
We're proud that you're a climber, Six String Poet. Thank you.
Heck yeah.
That's awesome.
So leave a rating and review. We're trying to get to 200 before ratings and reviews disappear. I don't know if they will. And we just want to get to 200. And then finally, tell a friend about it. That's the best thing that you can do. If it comes from us, we talk about how cool it is and how much it can help. It's 50% true. But if it comes from you, if you're giving us 30 minutes to an hour of your time once a week, we're so grateful for that. But man, share that with somebody else. Let them know why. How is it that we get people that are proud to be climbers? Like, tell a friend about it. Here's the deal. We got a reputation. We're trying to spread it around.
Let's put it this way. In a world where everybody is getting canceled for everything, why don't you do some programming? Help program something positive into the world. The Climb.
That's right. There we go.
Canceled for that.
All right. So what are we going to do here with Lyricist?
Yeah. So Connor, just catch up. He's one of my interns this semester. He's awesome. He's knocking it out of the park. And so he asked me, okay, I'm a songwriter. Some lyricists have hit me up about writing, which is cool. And I want to give that a shot. But what should I be prepared for? I've never written with a lyricist before. And so I'm just going to kind of relay part of our conversation, some of the stuff, I thought was an excellent point. I hadn't really thought about it from that angle. I thought about plenty of like a lyricist, how to prepare for writing with a co-writer who writes melody, because that's my situation. But let's turn it on its head a little bit. And so what I want to do, maybe you're just a melody writer, or that's your strength, or you write lyric and melody, which most people write both. Okay, you got a day on the books with a lyricist. You're like, okay, how's this going to work? I'm used to, like, if I co-write, it's two of us on guitar or guitar and piano. We're jamming. Well, how does it work with somebody in a room that just brings in like a notebook or a laptop? And
who's that funny guy in the corner with the notebook?
Yeah, and exactly, like, well, that's different, So I want to make you a little more prepared, a little more comfortable, because that's going to help out my lyricist buddies and you. And it's funny hearing that question, because it confirms something I've said before, which is I've given advice to lyricists. Keep this in mind. They're just as scared of you as you are of them. Right?
That's funny.
To me, it's magic how people have melodies in their heads, because I don't sing worth a flip, and I'm not a melody person worth a flip. Like, it's magic to me. I love it. Like, watching it happen. It's amazing, and it's magical, and it's awesome. So I have mad respect for my melody writers. But I don't, how do you do that? But I've also found that it kind of can freak them out, going, you just don't hear like melody? Like, you don't, right? Because it's so natural to them. I'm like, no, man. The other half of my brain, instead of being full of melody, is full of like spreadsheets and business ideas, right? So where yours is full of lyric and melody, I'm like lyric and spreadsheets. So that's the first thing. Man, everybody's freaked out by everybody. It's a different situation. And so I have some grace and know that it runs both ways. Both sides can be uncomfortable going into this situation. So that's part of it. Just they're as scared of you as you are of them.
Love it.
Yeah. So there are different ranges of what could be coming through your door. Okay, so if you've never written with a lyricist before, there could be a vast difference between what a brand newbie doesn't know what they're doing, lyricist brings in, and what someone like myself would bring in, right? So let's start at the beginning. They may bring in a poem, like set up like a poem, no song structure, weird rhymes, because Connor said, some people have shown me some lyrics before, and I can't even really tell it's a lyric. It's a poem. It feels like a poem, and basically no discernible song structure in there. So that's like the kind of worst case. The other worst case is if they're not very open to changing things. So we're going to start at the bad end, and then we're going to talk about the good stuff that can happen, right? So I want to prepare you to start at the foundation. And he said he's talked to some other people who he's like, oh, is it cool to move some stuff around for melody? And they're like, what? So when I started out, lyricist, and I would show a melody or a lyric to my buddy Tim, who's my only co-writer back in the day. Mm-hmm. I was more clingy to the lyric I would bring in. A lot of times it'd be like a full lyric.
Kind of prideful of it, right?
Kind of, well, like, hey, I worked on this. I woodshed on this. This is a lyric. Make it sing, singer boy. Let's work it out.
Chop, chop. Time is money.
Because I gave much more prominence to the lyric, because I'm a lyric first guy. It makes sense. I'm a lyricist. When I listen to songs, I'm honing in on the lyric, that kind of stuff. I'm not educated on the musical side of things, and that's not my primary jam, especially more so back then than now. I'm more balanced now. And so I didn't realize the importance of the melody. It matters, but no, dude, it matters. If you want to go pro, if you want to get cuts, if you want to be commercially competitive, melody matters huge.
Yeah. And
so that clinging on to, no, this is my lyric, I don't want it changed up, just put a melody on it. That can come from arrogance, right? Of, well, I'm awesome, and you don't need to change my words. My words they're right. You just find a way to make it sing, and trust me, my words will carry us. Or any old melody works, which is not true. And it's not respectful of your co-writer. So it could come from arrogance, or it could come from lack of self-confidence. It could come from the other direction. Arrogance and lack of self-esteem or whatever, they can come out looking the same oftentimes. And so maybe they're like, well, I worked on this really hard. I'm kind of scared to get in the room, and now all of a sudden we got to start changing stuff up on the fly. And maybe I'm going to fall on my face. Right? Like, I'm going to have to perform live in front of my co-writer and pull some stuff out. And maybe that's not easy for me to do. I'm not confident that that's going to be able to happen. So keep it the way it is, because I like how it is. And once it gets out of that kind of controlled environment and we're, no guarantees. So that could be part of it as well. So there could different reasons for that. The way I look at it now is I bring everything in, and I may bring in a full lyric, but I call it a scratch lyric. Like a scratch vocal is like a guideline. All right, that's a scratch. Now, I maybe flatten, sharpen some spots, a little out of pocket, but it's basically to get the vibe right. And then we'll hone in and do the final vocal, right? There's where you polish it, you get it just right. You may change up some melody stuff. So I call it a scratch lyric, which means it's all on the table. It's all on the cutting board. But what it's supposed to do is give you the vibe and the idea of where we're going with this. The twists and turns, it maps it out. You get the vision of what this could be. But you know what? I'm totally open to shuffling stuff around, to changing lines for the sake of melody. Because again, mad respect for the melody. If it doesn't sing, it won't get sung.
Yeah, hold on. Let me jump in for a second here. So first of all, let's not forget this part. You're playing in the sandbox.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I've written with people like that before, where they're just rigid, unflexible, no, that won't work. And it's not a hit songwriter, right? So I don't know if you're right or not.
Right, yeah.
So here's the thing. It's a sandbox. Yeah. What if you just try it? Mm-hmm. Maybe it doesn't work. Maybe you're right. Maybe you're not. Maybe you'll be like, oh, that was cool.
Yeah.
So when I'm producing, I have an idea of what I want to hear on that track. And then sometimes, and this happens often, right? Where sometimes this happened with one of the Neil Schuyler songs. Mm-hmm. It was Crazy, I think was the song. And I thought, here's what this is going to sound like in my head. This is what we're going to do. And while everybody's getting tuned up and we're getting ready to put the spaghetti in the machine, all of a sudden the guitar player starts doing this crazy thing with this delay thing. And it was just not at all what I had in mind. Uh-huh. It was the opposite of what I had in mind. But I was like, oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
And then just him, before the band even started, just messing around with that pedal, mm-hmm. right? And this little line, this delay thing, and this line that he had, all of a sudden set the tone for the track. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden, everybody just like, oh, everybody felt the same way I did. That's cool. So all of a sudden, the bass starts, hey, I could do this, and that would work. And then the drummer's like, yeah, and next thing you know, that just happened out of nowhere. Yeah. We didn't get to the part where we were given any direction yet on what we wanted to do. But it's kind of like one of those moments where, you remember when we talked about that article about people who are lucky or generally feel unlucky, and they went into this test and the administrator gives everybody a newspaper and they're getting paid. This is back in the 30s. They're getting paid like $250 to come into this test, which is a lot of money. And they said, count all the pictures, all the images in the newspaper, and then tell us what that number is. And then you turn to the second page and there's like a big half page or quarter page ad that's black and white with big block letters that says there are 19 images in this newspaper. Go tell the testing guy that and collect your $250. Yeah. But it wasn't an image. Yeah. And so the people that generally felt lucky figured out how many images there were in less than 5 seconds. Yeah. And walked up and got their money. And the ones that generally felt unlucky took 3 or 4 minutes, double, triple counted everything. And then went, why? Because they're only looking for this one thing and they're not keeping their eyes open, So you got to go into this sandbox kind of thing. And it's kind of like what we talk about with different, like screwing around with songs. Uh-huh. Like, what if you take that ballad that you write, because you write mostly ballads, and you put some tempo to it? Mm-hmm. What would happen? Why is that forsaking the ballad?
Right.
You've got the ballad. And what if you have a different version? Like, what if you have 5 different versions of it? Who cares?
Yeah, you're playing with house money.
Yeah, so sometimes I'll do that when I got a vocalist in the booth and we're trying to cop that vocal. We got something that's money, but I know they're on a roll. Uh-huh. So it's like you just said, house money. So be like, hey, let's do that again, just because I wonder if you can beat it. Like, well, this is amazing, but you're on a roll right now. And so then they feel like the safety thing, right? Okay, I've already hit the home run. So it doesn't matter if I win or lose here, and they'll try different things. And it's just the wonderment of the experimentation. And you crap all over that if you're going to be a rigid, no, it has to be like this.
Right, yeah.
There's 1,000 ways to say something. the same thing 1,000 ways. And so you just have to kind of be open to playing around with it and let that creative river, the combined energy of everybody in the room, kind of take you somewhere.
Yeah, and the same,
don't be blocking it like a beaver. Right?
We're kind of aiming this at the lyricist, saying don't be so totally rigid. And the same goes to the melody person. If you come in with the melody, but the lyric is banging, you're like, oh, hey, it's all right. Change some stuff up on the fly. Maybe it does need to change a little bit for what they're saying, because what they're saying is so worth it.
Yeah.
So both parties need to be willing to compromise and yet be uncompromising, right? We can compromise what I brought in, what you brought in, but we can't compromise for the sake of the song. We have to be uncompromising in our pursuit of excellence. And I don't care whose babies we have to kill, my babies that I brought in, or your babies, or whatever. We're uncompromising on the quality of the song. It doesn't matter who gets credit, right?
Yeah, and maybe like save the suspense, right? Let me save you the suspense. Maybe it's not going to work. Maybe you're right.
Right.
So what? You let it happen, right? So it's not about being right in the room, but it's about, okay, so you kind of go down that road, and maybe that mistake that you see very clearly that the other person doesn't leads to something else. Where it can be like, oh, hey, hold on a second. I mean, what would Neil Schuyler's track sound like if I'm like, no, we don't want any delayed guitar
because
on this.
I have my notes and I'm not going off script because I don't ad lib. Some actors can ad lib, some can't.
That's right. And so it's sometimes like, I mean, you have to go in there with a plan. You have to go in there with a vision of what you want, but you also have to be open to turning to page 2 and seeing the block letters that say, here's what's really going to happen.
Yeah.
It's totally like, wow, that was neat. Okay, tell you what, let's just see where this goes. And damned if it didn't turn out killer. Anyway, that was my thought. Like, play in the sandbox.
That's right. So kind of backtracking a little bit. So if they come in with this poem, you may have to do some education, which means you need to know your stuff to be able to teach it. If you get stuck in the room with maybe a hapless lyricist who maybe has some talent, some good ideas, but they don't have the structure yet, you may have to explain some of that stuff. Try to do that with grace, just like I would hope they would do for you if it's reversed. So you may have to talk a little bit about song structure, rhyme scheme, that kind of stuff. Like, the rhyme scheme really needs to be the same on the second verse as it is on the first verse, because otherwise it's going to make the melody feel off if you don't rhyme in the same places.
It's going to feel like two different songs.
Exactly. It's just not going to work. Not every writer knows that, much less lyricist. Just because they're lyricists doesn't mean they have it all down, because nobody starts off having it all down. So you might have to be prepared to do a little bit of gracious. You get kind of leading on structure and some of that stuff, which can be a great benefit to them. And they may get on a roll and they learn and they get much better. And then you're really glad you're working together. So there's that. But yeah, just you may want to explain on the front end and feel them out too. Hey, you know what? In my experience working with lyrics, sometimes the lyric has to change for the sake of the melody, just for singability, that kind of stuff. Do you like to bring in a full lyric? How open are you to change? And based on their response, you may kind of gauge like, how much do I want to get in the room with this person? That could be a red flag about, no. Like you get the vibe of like, I don't like change. It's probably not going to be a good collaborator. Mm-hmm. So that's a little testing question for that.
Collaborator's the key word.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Nobody's in charge. The song is in charge. We're both serving the song. And hopefully, if they know what they're doing, they're bringing in something that's well-structured, that has a nice rhythm to it. And so a little piece of advice for melody writers, have the lyricist read, like if they bring in something, some may just bring in a title and just want to write it from scratch, but they'll just kind of take a lead on the lyric, which is cool. Because that way you have free reign on the melody. You've been bouncing off them. Hey, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? And they're not locked into anything, which is awesome when that happens. It's probably a lot easier for you. But if they bring something in like a chorus lyric or a whole lyric or verse lyric, whatever it is, have them read it out loud, because there's going to be a rhythm, hopefully, right? Hopefully there's going to be a rhythm and a prosody kind of thing of how they read it out loud. And if they're stumbling over it, it's probably time to go back to the drawing board. If they can't even read their own work without stumbling over it, the odds of you being able to sing it, not very good, right? But just have them read it out loud. That'll give you a sense of what syllables they're emphasizing, kind of where the natural beats and the rhythm of it is. It can be a shortcut to understanding kind of where their head's at. So they don't have to sing it. Just read it out loud. Read that again. And there's that thing about you kind of sing like you talk or whatever, the natural rhythms. then it can help give you some clues of kind of what the vibe might be, the melody might be. So that's a little hack for you. Have them read it out loud. Plus, that way they have to talk more. And it's not just you. The other thing is, don't be scared to ask for a little bit of space. Like, one thing I try to do to put my co-writers at ease is not look over their shoulder. Like, if I bring in a scratched lyric, bring in a whole verse and chorus and everything, I'm like, okay, here's this thing. First of all, I'll preface, hey, this is scratch, all right? So I want this to have a killer melody. So if we need to change some stuff up for the sake of the melody, add a couple syllables, shorten the lines, lengthen them, have a different, I'm all about it, because I want it to sound as good as what it's talking about. And I have confidence that we can make the lyric work, but I really want to give you as much latitude on the melody as possible, right? So that's a thing to you. Hopefully they'll say that. If not, talk to them about, hey, can we change some stuff up, whatever. But I don't want to sit over their shoulders and stare at them while they're trying to come up with the melody, because that's a lot of pressure. It can feel like a lot of pressure on the melody writer. If somebody shows up, they hand you a page. And they're like, okay, what does this sound like? I don't know. And you're just going to stare at me while I'm trying to figure this out. I didn't get to stare at you while you were typing.
That's right.
And so don't be scared to say, hey, is it cool if I just I'm just going to noodle around. All right. So none of this is, I'm just digging. All right. That's cool. Go grab a coffee if you want to. If you need that, you want to go grab a coffee and be honest about that. Let me find a little groove first without you staring at me. Just be honest about that.
Yeah.
And so what I'll do if I'm in the room, I try not to appear like I'm staring over their shoulder. I want it to be a safe space where they can create and feel like they can try something and make a mistake. And I'm not just in there going, what was that? No. I don't want to shut them down. I want to open them up. So I'll just be kind of working on my laptop and maybe thinking about some other lyric and just kind of fine tooth combing kind of what I already have there and basically just not staring at them. And so oftentimes, somebody go, hey, what do you think about that? I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. I was in lyric land. Can you play that again? Because I'm really kind of only half listening because I want to let them lead and find something they dig with. So I'm like, just you tell me if there's something you want me to hear. Other than that, I'm just letting you kind of vibe. And so don't be afraid to ask them for a little bit of space if that's what you need. Communication solves a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Like prefacing. I'm just going to do some digging. I'm going to try some different stuff. Let's just figure it out. You had a head start on me.
Around the block.
Another thing is to ask them, which will probably come pretty natural, but hey, did you have a vibe in mind? Did you have any sort of melody? Did you have a song that kind of informed this a little bit? Like, oh, I was listening to Eric Church's Springsteen, and that's kind of what I was vibing with. It's the structure's different. It's not right on top of it's a different idea, but that's kind of what I was vibing to. Okay. It may give you a sense of like, oh, okay, it could be this kind of thing. That's helpful too. So don't be afraid to do a little detective work. You start off with a world of possibilities. Ballad, tempo, reggae, hip hop, pop country. Like let's start down this end because it's like the tyranny of choice. You have too many choices. Let's start narrowing down. Okay, were you vibing to something? Who's the kind of artist you think would say what you're saying here? Okay, and may give you some ideas to kind of get that ball rolling, kind of put some walls around you a little bit in a good way. Some structure is helpful because it helps me write lyrics if I'm thinking what kind of vibe, what kind of artist, what kind of lane. So I start getting a voice for the character, and you got to find a musical voice too. So hopefully all this is making sense. I have no notes for this one.
It's making sense to me. I mean, you just kind of, I never thought about it being two different animals in the same room.
Yeah.
A lyricist and a melody.
Yeah. So a lot of this is kind of just the flip side of being a lyricist. Hey, give them some space and trying to find the vibe and giving respect to the lyric, just like the lyricist hopefully will give crazy respect to the melody. And so also, it helps to have some ideas, like you bring in your homework. You might be expecting the lyricist to come in with at least some titles, some ideas. You do your homework too. Get a couple chord progressions going. If you have some bits and pieces of melody, do your homework there. So you bring something to the potluck. You want to bring a good dish. You want the lyricist to bring a dish, and you want.
Good way of looking at it.
It doesn't mean they're going to work together. I mean, that's beautiful when every once in a while, just the other day I was writing with some guys and I was like, okay, I got this lyric, but it gave you the sense of, okay, this is what this is about. Okay, this is the vision. I'm like, I'm thinking of this kind of thing, this kind of vibe. And one of the other writers like, well, I was working on this melody thing with a different idea, but I like your idea better. Like, how about this kind of vibe? So he'd been doing some homework prepping. And so we end up kind of sticking my lyrical start with the melodic thing, from this other song that he was just woodshedding on, like prepping to bring in. And that gave us the basic framework. And then we, are off to the races. So that's part of it too, is you come in with some ideas. Yeah. So everyone bring bring a casserole,
So I got a question.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm just thinking about what you said at the beginning of this show, which was you were talking about like a scratch. Mm-hmm. So explain that a little bit more. What do you mean by it? Like sometimes when I would write, I'm working on the melody that I want to do. And so I'm singing gibberish.
Yeah.
That's the scratch. Like, it's just like, I'm just trying to find a rhythm and
what feels
I'm trying to find a melody.
Sounds like, the O sounds go here. They sound good here, but I'm not really singing Legos. I'm just going to sing something else. Yeah.
Yeah. Is that what you mean by that?
So for me, let's say if I have a full scratch lyric, it's getting the map together, the blueprint where I like it, going, okay, this is the information we're going to reveal in the first verse. This is what the chorus does. This is what the second verse does, and maybe a bridge if we have one. So this is the map. The ground we need to cover in the first verse is here. So it leads in and sets up that chorus effectively. Same thing for the second verse to set up that second chorus. So it helps keep us out of second verse hell. Like we have an idea, of like, oh, you're at the first verse of the chorus. You're like, I have no idea what to do next. Sometimes that happens if we, if an idea comes up in the room or somebody else brings an idea and that we decide to work on. But when I bring stuff in, generally that's not the issue. I try to overcome that before I bring it in, just because I like to have that confidence. I have enough ideas. I don't have to bring in ones I haven't figured out yet.
It can be a hard hurdle, because you're like, this first chorus, this first verse is so cool. Yeah. How are we going to beat it?
Yeah.
In the second.
Right. Or what needs to be said? What is there anything else left to say? Like I have enough ideas. I don't have to bring in one that still has those big questions unanswered. I'll just bring in the ones that I like that already have those questions answered. And it may not be the right answer, but at least I'm confident we got something. Sometimes we still find a different way. So the scratch means, it's got structure, it's got a rhyme scheme. It has a general like phrasing. I could read it out and it's going to have a bounce to it. I could read it to you. But however, the third line of the first verse and the third line of the second verse might not quite have the same syllable count, might not quite have the same rhythm, but it generally says what I want it to say. And so it's like, okay, I know that you're not just going to be able to sing this all the way down because the phrasing of the whole thing may change, but it's more like getting the thoughts right.
Okay.
And getting some general rhythm in, but it's not 100% locked in. That's how I do it. That's what it is for me. It's mostly there because, it's nice. You bring this in and people are like, well, that's done. I'm like, it's scratch. We can beat it. Like, dude, your scratch is fire. That's good. I want to start there and then go better, right? Because I'm a specialist.
Yeah.
I really need to knock it out. So that just comes from doing it a lot. Like I get my rhythms kind of locked in, but then, hey, let's change it. If that different melody is killer and bring something special to it, okay, well, let's change it up. Let's change up how we say it. That's fine. We can do that. That's my job. And I also like having sounds that sound good in different places. Like we may need an O sound here instead of an E sound. Because with this melody, we may need to change this rhyme here just because that note's going to sing really well. And again, if it doesn't sing, it won't get sung. Let's find something that's really good to sing there. So I know that things like that may change. So I try to hold it with an open hand.
Sure.
And not put words at the end of lines for rhymes that are just like, I don't know if that's going to sing well.
Right.
And even though I'm not a singer, I've been doing this long enough in rooms with singers, you get a sense of, and listening to tons of songs, you get a sense of kind of what sings well, what doesn't, that sort of thing. So for melody, it's get them to read the lyric, get them to see if they can give you some vibe tracks, some reference tracks on what they're thinking. Because if you start running down a road that's completely not what they had in mind, it could be great. But if they're not on that kind of journey with you to get there, they may be like, but I'm still thinking this totally George Strait thing, and you're taking it Florida Georgia line. I haven't caught up yet, so I'm resisting that. Well, talk to them. Oh, it's George Strait kind of thing. Okay. But, I'm also thinking, have you thought about this? It could be like this FGL kind of thing. And just communicating and trying some different stuff. Just like the lyricist isn't in charge. Even if they're working off something they brought in, you're not in charge either. And you want to take the journey together. My daughter, Hazel, Hurricane Hazel, she can get into the fridge now. She's big enough. She can open that fridge door and she'll start rummaging through for some stuff. And
it's funny.
I don't do a great job sometimes of, no, we're putting this back in there because I'm about to fix your dinner, or we're going to get you something else or whatever. Sometimes I'm just, because I got a bunch of kids running around, busy or whatever, and just put it up. And she gets upset. And it was like, you need to explain it to her. Oh, yeah, I forget, because she doesn't really talk back. She's not very verbal, but she listens and she understands. I need to do a better job of explaining what's going on, so she's not like, it's like, Daddy's taking food away from me, and I like to feed my face. So as a melody writer, you want to do that too. Like, okay, well, here's what I'm thinking, and here's why I think that might not work, and not just be like, no. Explain, do some teaching too. Just that way they understand, like, okay, this may be why this doesn't work here, because that sound doesn't sing well. And you want it to sing well so people enjoy singing it. That's that kind of stuff. So a lot of it's just communication, because just remember, you have the curse of knowledge. You understand music, and the lyricist may not. And so what you kind of take for granted, why, that doesn't work, because they have 85 syllables in that line, but this corresponding line in the first verse has 4, that's not going to work. You can kind of explain that a little bit. It's like, well, with those syllable counts and the bouncing, it's not even really syllables. It's about just phrasing. They can have different numbers of syllables, but it's how it phrases and sits in there that, that's just not going to work. Let's work on paring this down to something that's more singable. So a lot of it's just communication.
Yeah. And not to beat the dead horse, but it's from the lyricist point of view. If you're a lyricist, like you're a lyricist where you don't sing and melody is magic, then let them understand too when they're saying something to you like that. Like, okay, I can't make it work, right? I can't make it roll off the tongue real good. So we got to change it a little bit here or there because it doesn't feel right.
Yeah. And so for the lyricist, their responsibility is trusting the musician to know their business. And for the musician, it's maybe just doing some of that explaining that you think is obvious, but may not be obvious to someone who's not musical. So in a way, just feel free to over-explain, dumb it down. Speak lyricist, please. I don't speak your language. I go to the 4 to the 5 minor. Sure. I don't know what that means. I don't do math.
What that mean? Sounds great.
Okay. Yeah, sure. I'm not going to say anything because I don't know what you're talking about and I don't want to feel stupid. So feel free to kind of over-explain. And then you get a sense of them, what they know, what they don't know. But I think that's really the big stuff. And I've probably missed some stuff because I am not a melody writer. So there may be some big obvious things I'm missing. So, hey, hit us up in the C.L.I.M.B community. When we post this, add your stuff. Add your stuff in the comments because I would love to hear that too. And we just want to help each other to have better co-writes.
That's right.
And get better songs and have a better experience. And if you have any other hacks like that, let us know. But the big thing is be flexible and communicate and just try to serve the song. So that goes for whether you're the melody writer, you're a top liner, you're a lyricist, whatever that is. We want to serve the song, not our own interest. Because if we serve the song, then our own interest will be taken care of. You get that for free if you serve the song, not your percentage of the song or being able to say, well, that's 100% my lyric. Who cares if 100% of people hate it, right? Or nobody hears it. I'd rather be like, I was just lucky to be in the room that day and it was a hit than, well, yes, that's all me. What song is that again? No, I never heard of it. That doesn't serve your interest. You serve the song, everybody wins. I think it was Reagan that said, and he probably got it from somewhere, but it's amazing what you can accomplish if you don't care who gets the credit.
Yeah.
And that's collaboration. That's being a good co-writer, good collaborator, good creative. It's like, hey, man, as long as the song wins, dude, we all win. That's all that matters. That's part of what's beautiful about Nashville doing standard even splits on co-writes. We're not like, well, I brought in the lyric and you brought in the melody. That's why it's 50-50. But I brought in the lyric and then we rewrote the lyric. And so therefore you got 50% because it's your melody and you got another 25% because that's probably how much of the lyric you did. So now you have 75% of the song and I have 25. No.
Like, how do they freaking figure that out anywhere else outside of Nashville? Like
leverage. Leverage. He's the artist. He can basically pick his percentage. And after that, I don't know, whoever has the most leverage, it probably cascades down from there.
I mean, some of those songs in LA and stuff, they got like 10 writers on them. Like literally.
Yeah.
And how do they do that? Like some of those damn songs that come from LA, like some of those Beyonce songs, don't get me wrong, I love Beyonce. She's a great artist, but I don't think they got 10 words in the song. 10 different words. It's baby, 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 baby.
Right.
And there's 10 different writers. And you're like, wait, what?
Yeah, I don't know how that works. It works for them. God bless them. And obviously the fans love it. So it's working. So it's not a comment on the music, but how do you split that up? That's why I love it. I don't have to think about it. It's just even splits, dude. And to me, a moral hazard, is when a situation is set up that kind of tempts you to do things that aren't moral. So it removes that moral hazard. It takes off the table me wondering, are you fighting for your line because you think it's the best line, or are you fighting for your percentage?
Right.
It takes it off the table. That's never a concern. You may have just pride.
Yeah.
I wrote that line. That can always still be a thing, right? But as far as the money stuff, no, dude, it's going to be even. And so it helps you just focus on, let's just make this song great. I don't care who wrote the line. And you can't really figure that up anyway because, well, yeah, you got the final wording, but it was based off something I said. And plus, everybody's got to sign off. So to me, that's I'll take ownership of it. I got to sign off on that melody. I didn't create it, but I got to sign off on it. And I'll speak into it like, I like this version better, that version, or maybe like a little this vibe, or, I'll speak into it some. I'm not creating it, but I'm helping edit maybe. So I don't think you can break that stuff up. I don't think you can do that because it wouldn't have been the same if all those people hadn't been in the room. And people are influenced in ways maybe we're not even totally aware of. So that's why I love the even splits, because it makes for a happy home. Everybody's okay. And maybe one day I didn't bring it like I would have liked to, but the next day I may overbring it. And it's all going to kind of even out.
You're carrying the football.
It's all going to even out. So we have grace in the moment. Long-term wins and relationships win. But yeah, if you consistently don't bring it, you're not going to be in those rooms. Eventually, they just won't invite you in because you're not bringing the value, equal value. But we all know that, some days we just have days. It's just one of those days. I'm having a Monday, right? And that all washes out over time. If you're professional and you are good enough, and if you're not professional, not good enough, that's going to bear out too. And you'll stop being invited into those rooms. So it takes care of itself. Yeah. So that's what I had to say. So melody writers, don't be scared of lyricists. Lyricists, don't be scared of melody writers. It's even, we're all freaked out by each other, but we need each other. We need a lyric and a melody for commercial music, and just have some grace for each other, communicate, be upfront, and be willing to play in the sandbox. Oh, by the way, if you're willing to play in the sandbox, well, I want to thank you for playing in the C.L.I.M.B sandbox. I want to give you a gift. It's at songwritingpro.com/gift. And it's my free ebook called Think Like a Pro Songwriter. It talks about 7 things every lyricist should know if you want some more dive into the other side of this. And it talks about why you should pitch your own songs and what kind of a checklist before you pitch a song. Consider these questions, that kind of stuff. So just distill some of the stuff I've learned from my however many years now I've been in the music business. And it's my gift to you. So songwritingpro.com/gift. And I'd love to share it with you.
There you go. All right, guys. Well, that brings us to the end of another Killer Climb episode. Make sure that you subscribe to the podcast wherever you like to listen to podcasts. Join the Climb community. You have to ask to be let in, but we let everybody in, and you get to stay in as long as you're good boys and girls. Leave a rating and review, hopefully 5 stars, but we read them all on the air. We've had a couple ones, couple twos, right? And then finally, tell a friend about it. That's the best way to spread the news. All the young dudes carry the news. Like, let them know. All right, guys, this podcast exists because we want you to win. So keep on climbing.
And we'll see you at the top.